Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the beginner series. This is the third episode. The first one I had given a list across genres, list of 5 books. The previous episode was books by Indian authors for beginners. And this episode I have got thrillers for you. 5 books, thrillers for beginners, which I feel that beginners will be able to enjoy, will be able to read. But before I move on to that book list, as usual, I'll quickly run through the points that you need to keep in mind while you're starting your reading journey. One, never read before sleeping. Read consistently, read every day at least for 15 minutes. Read books that have topics that are interesting for you. And do not stop in the middle to check the meanings of words that you are unfamiliar with. Wait till the end of the chapter or 10 pages or how much ever you set the limit. So keep these factors in mind and I guarantee you that you will become a reader. But you have to be consistent. So today I have got a very interesting set of books for you. Thrillers is something which has always fascinated me. And I remember reading Agatha Christie's in school when I was in class 7. I went through the entire series of Agatha Christie and Alistair MacLean. And I used to read in class, at home, when I was supposed to be studying. Always there would be a novel between the pages of my textbook. And I remember once my grandmom, she came and she just came to see whether I was studying, and I was so engrossed in the book that I forgot that I'm supposed to hold it along with the textbook. So I just quickly got up and the novel fell down. So Amuma looked at me, then she looked at the novel, and then we both looked at each other. I had a very sheepish look on my face, but I think she just thought, okay, no point in telling this girl, and she went off. So Agatha Christie's have been like a huge part of my reading journey. So the first book that I have chosen for you today is an Agatha Christie. And this book actually was written in 1926. And it's considered one of her masterpieces and one of the most controversial of her books because it broke all the usual structures of thrillers that were followed up till then. So the book is called The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. And this has got a usual narrative, okay, usual structure I should say, because there is a group of suspects. They all come together, a murder happens, and then the detective comes in to find out the killer. And my favorite detective of Agatha Christie is Hercule Poirot, and he features in this book too. He is such a delightful character. He is very, very particular about his appearance, and he keeps his mustache waxed, and his clothes have to be just right, and he's slightly self-centered. So people generally tend to underestimate him. They feel that, okay, I mean, what is this guy going to do here? So this story is happens in a village where Hercule Poirot decides to go and spend his retired life. And the person who is murdered is Roger Ackroyd. Roger Ackroyd holds a dinner for a couple of people he knows, and after that dinner, he is murdered in his home. So all these people are suspects, but they all have alibis. And Hercule Poirot slowly unravels the mystery, and there are so many layers which are revealed as we go along. And the twist that is there is so superb. You will love it. It's a very subtle, very beautifully moving. This moves forward very beautifully, you know. It's not fast paced, but still your attention will not lag. You'll find something interesting in all that's happening, because your mind is also working trying to find out the killer. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd is the first book on my list. Now we move on to the second book. And this again was written in 1974. Now you might be wondering why I'm bringing all these old books back. It is because they are very, very interesting. And I think that as a beginner, you will love reading all these. And this book is Carrie by Stephen King, and it is first published book. 1974, Stephen King, the king of horror, okay? So this is the story of Carrie. Carrie is a very lonely teenager, and she is brought up by a mother who is very, very strict when it comes to religion, and she is practically, punished for all kinds of small mistakes, punished very badly by her mother. And in school, she's bullied mercilessly because she's slightly different. Her mother doesn't let her wear clothes that are short. Her mother doesn't let her cut her hair. There's so many restrictions that her mother has put on her. And Carrie is ridiculed in school for all these things. So it starts with a very sad incident in Carrie's life. It's so sad, when you read about Carrie and the loneliness and the frustration and the isolation that she feels because she's different. So, but Carrie has a particular power that even she's not aware of, and that is telekinesis. Now, telekinesis is as yet unproved. It is the power of moving physical objects with your mental power, which all of us, I'm sure, would love to do. So, Carrie has the power of telekinesis. And as the book proceeds, how does she use it? What happens? What happens to all the people who bully her? What happens to her mother? What happens to Carrie? Now, this has been made into a movie which I believe is supposed to be really good. I haven't watched it. This book is really small, so it'll be easy for you to move through it. And it's chilling. It's written in quintessential Stephen King style. It's slightly raw because it's his first book, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Maybe, I don't know how terrifying it will be today when you see so many things happening all around us that are really sad and really horrible. But when you read about Carrie, you will be taken along by what Stephen King has in store for you. So Carrie by Stephen King is my second book of the day. Incidentally, Carrie is one of the most, or rather was one of the most banned books in American schools in the 1990s. They felt that it was too terrifying and disturbing for children because it happens in a school, and maybe that was one of the reasons. But please read it. Please read it. It's as a thriller. It's really lovely. Now we move on to the next book, and that is Altar of Eden by James Rollins. Now, James Rollins is one of those authors who has a very exciting way of writing. It's like watching a big entertainer on screen. There is so much of action. It's fast-paced. It's the colorful characters, and the plot line is so exciting. So, in Altar of Eden, the story begins in Baghdad when a zoo is destroyed. There is a lot of fighting happening in Baghdad, and the zoo is destroyed. And there are some things which escape from that zoo, and some things, there is an underground lab, and there are some things taken from that lab. We don't know what it is, okay? And then fast forward to 7 years later, and we are with Lorna in America. And Lorna is a veterinarian, and suddenly one fine day she is called to inspect a ship that has been shipwrecked. So she wonders why she's been called, and she goes there and she sees that there are a lot of animals in cages inside that ship, but they are all mutated animals. They are not exactly how that particular animal is supposed to be. Parts of them have been mutated, have been changed. One thing that is common among all the animals there is that they have a very heightened sense of intelligence. They're very intelligent. And one of those animals has escaped. It is such a roller coaster. Oh my God. Lorna is joined by Jack Menard, who is a border patrol agent. And these two set out to bring back the escaped animal. At the same time, there are other people who know that what has been done to these animals and why. And it's still going on. And they want to capture the escaped animal before anybody can get to it. It is like a superb chase. There are these horrifying elements where these mutated animals can do a lot of things. It's sad. It's like a lot of fun and excitement and a lot of action. So Altar of Eden by James Rollins is a really good book for a beginner because you are just taken along by the action. So that is book number 3. Now we come to book number 4, and that is Day of the Jackal by Frederick Forsyth. I don't know whether it's Forsyth or Forsyth. I'll just call him Forsyth. Okay, so again, this book is from A Blast from the Past, and I have talked about this in my podcast, Forgotten Books, but it is such an interesting read. In fact, a lot of movies have been based on this, on Day of the Jackal. Even in my Malayalam, there is a movie called August 1st, in which Mammootty is the main protagonist. He's starring in that. And I think it was a huge hit. So there are so many different movies, even an English movie called Day of the Jackal. But the book is amazing. The basic premise is that the French president is going to be assassinated. We follow the assassin and the police. So the police get to know that there is an assassination that is about to happen. They know the date. They know it's about to happen. They know it's going to happen to the French president, but they don't know who's going to do it. They have absolutely no clue because the Jackal is fanatical about his privacy. He does not tell anybody about his real identity. Even the people who have hired him have no idea what his real identity is. So on one side we have the Jackal and his preparations, and on the other side we have the French police and their investigations. And the Jackal is a master at disguises. Oof, I can't tell you how exciting it is. I reread it and it is as exciting as when I read it long back. So Day of the Jackal by Frederick Forsyth is the fourth book on the list today. Now I come to the last and the most chilling book in this list. The book is The Whisper Man by Alex North. It is Alex North's first crime novel, crime debut. I read it and I was so shaken and disturbed. I kept looking under the bed, I kept locking my door at night. It is so scary, it's really scary. This is about Tom and his 7-year-old son Jake. Tom has just lost his wife Rebecca and they decide to move to another place so that Tom and Jake have a fresh start without memories. And Jake has always bonded better with his mother rather than with his father. So Tom also has to form that bond with his son, and that is one of the reasons why he decides to make a fresh start. And he lands up at this place called Featherbanks. Now, Featherbanks has a very scary history because 20 years back, there has been the murder of 5 children, and the perpetrator, the murderer, has been caught. And he is being named the Whisper Man by the media because the news got around that these children, these 5 children who were kidnapped and murdered, heard whispers outside their window. Oh God, when I hear that thing about whispers itself, I get very scared. There's something about whispers, windows and night which is like so scary. So these children have been hearing whispers outside the windows before they were kidnapped. And that is where Tom and Jake land up. Then there is also the chief of police called Pete. He is not very convinced about Frank Carter, who has been imprisoned, charged and imprisoned for these 5 murders 20 years back. And Frank Carter is still in prison. But by around the time that Tom and Jake land up in Featherbanks, there is a new murder that has happened, another child. And Pete feels that Frank Carter is somehow aware of it because this child's mother too says that he said that he had heard whispers. So this investigation is happening on one side, and Tom and Jake are trying to establish their house, and they are trying to establish their existence as a family. And that is when 7-year-old Jake starts hearing whispers. My God, this is such a chilling book. Now, if you do not want to be disturbed, then please don't read this book because it's really scary. I'm not joking, it's really scary. The narrative is fast-paced. There's so much happening there. Twists and turns and revelations, things being revealed. So many things happening there, but it is really disturbing. So if you're not ready for something like that, please do not read this. You can read the others on my list. And there are so many other different authors of thrillers. I'm not even going into their books because it's like so much. And I don't know whether you will appreciate, as a beginner, you will appreciate. You can find out. So Whisperman was the last one on the list. And you can find out, you can check out books by Sidney Sheldon, Rage of Angels If Tomorrow Comes. Then there's Tess Gerritsen. Then there is even our own Sherlock Holmes. Those are thrillers. Really, really well-written thrillers. I had this big list, okay. I made this big list of authors thinking that, okay, I'll tell you about these authors and, that they write thrillers and all that. I have forgot. So I'm not going into that. So these were the 5 books of today. And this time I have shown the pictures for a slightly longer time because my amma told me that she's unable to read the names of the books, which I felt was right. She's an avid reader and we have a lot of book discussions between us, and so she told me that, listen, you are just keeping it for a short period of time, I can't even read it. So this time I have kept the pictures for a longer period of time. So if there's any feedback like this that you want to give me, please DM me and start reading. If you do not want thrillers, then go back to the other suggestions that I made in the earlier episodes. And if there are any suggestions from your side which you feel that, as a beginner you enjoyed, then do write to me so that I can share it with everybody. So read anything that is around you: comics, children's books, magazines, newspaper, anything. So get down to reading. You have to read, you have to become a reader because it's such a rewarding journey. So till we meet again with my next list of books, you guys have a great week. Bye bye.